Nobody believed a song could wake the dead. Until it did. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She just sang, low and steady, like a woman who knew exactly what she was calling back from the dark. And one by one, from the cold earth at the edge of the village, they came. Fingers first. Then faces. Then eyes that hadn't blinked in years. All of them moving toward her voice. All of them listening. Not stumbling. Not rushing. Slowly. Deliberately. The way a man walks when he has been waiting a very long time, and someone has finally called his name. If you had been awake that night, standing at your window, you would have seen them. Shadows moving through the cassava rows. Shapes pausing at compound gates. Hands weightless, barely there. Pressed flat against the mud walls of houses they used to live in. All of them moving toward the sound of one woman's voice. Her name was Amara. And she had no idea what she was doing. If you love stories that reach into your chest and rearrange something, stay with me. This one will change how you think about grief. Now, before we go any further, let us understand who Amara was before the song found her. Because gifts like this do not fall from the sky into the hands of just anyone. The sky is particular about who it chooses. And it almost always chooses the person the world has already overlooked. Amara was 27 years old. She lived in the village of Oba, a village that smelled of red earth, palm oil, and the kind of gossip that travels faster than wind. She was a weaver. A very good one, actually. Her patterns were so tight and precise that women from neighboring villages rode 2 hours on bad roads just to buy from her. But she was quiet. Too quiet, the women said. Too inside herself. She had been that way for 3 years. Since Ease died. Ease was her twin brother. His death was the kind that follows you, the kind with roots. He had drowned in the Omiri River on a Tuesday evening searching for her after she wandered too close to the bank as a child. He was 14. He didn't come back up. She was saved. He was not. Amara had grown up carrying that. Not loudly. She didn't wail or collapse or make a scene the village could gather around and understand. She simply became quieter. And quieter. And quieter. Until she was the kind of woman people stepped around without knowing why. Her mother worried. Her aunts suggested husbands. The pastor said prayer would fix it. Amara wove her cloth, sold it for fair prices, fed herself and hummed. That was the other thing about her. She hummed constantly. In the mornings, bent over her loom. At the market, fingering fabric. Walking home at dusk when the air turned orange and the fireflies came out. A sound she could not explain and had never tried to. She didn't know it was a song. She didn't know it had words. In a language older than any she had ever learned. She didn't know yet what it was calling. But someone else did. Her name was Nana Obi. She was ancient in a way that made age seem like a generous understatement. Bent nearly double, eyes clouded white as morning fog, skin mapped with lines that looked less like wrinkles and more like a story someone had pressed into her with a thumb. She lived at the outer edge of Oba, in a compound so old the mud walls had grown their own gardens. The children were afraid of her. Most adults were too, but quietly. Amara had been bringing her fish twice a week for 4 years. Not because anyone asked. Just because someone had to. On the evening that changed everything, Nana Obi was sitting outside when Amara arrived. Sitting very still in the way blind people sometimes do, not resting but listening. You were humming again, Nana Obi said, before Amara had even passed the gate. Good evening, Nana. Come and sit. Amara sat. She placed the fish down. She waited. The old woman was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that made Amara's hands go cold. Your brother has been trying to come home. But he cannot find the door. Amara said nothing. The hum you carry, Nana Obi continued very slowly, is not yours. It was given to you the night he died. The river put it in you when it took him. It has been waiting for you to learn its shape. Nana, I am not speaking metaphor, child. I am speaking fact. The old woman turned her clouded eyes toward the sky. There is a song. It has existed longer than this village, longer than any village. When it is sung, completely correctly, before the first thread of sunrise touches the horizon, it opens a door. Those who are lost between here and there can hear it. And they come home. Amara's heart was doing something uncomfortable. I don't know any song like that. Yes, Nana Obi said simply. You do. That was when the old woman began to sing. And somewhere deep in Amara's chest, beneath the grief, beneath the years of silence, something turned over. Like a key in a lock it had always belonged to. She knew the melody instantly. Had always known it. Had been humming it for 3 years without understanding what lived inside it. She was singing before she realized she had opened her mouth. She did not mean to do it the first time. That is the honest truth of it. It was 3 weeks after the conversation with Nana Obi. 3 weeks of practicing alone, learning the words, feeling how the song moved when she let it out fully. Not as a hum. As a whole thing given shape and breath and intention. It was past midnight. She couldn't sleep. She went to the window and without thinking, the way she did everything in those small, unguarded hours, she began to sing. The song rolled out of her into the dark. For a long moment nothing happened. Then the air at the far end of her compound shifted. Like heat rising from a road. Like a figure stepping out of a shadow that was bigger on the inside than it appeared. He was shorter than she remembered. Younger looking. He had been 14 when he died, and death, she was discovering, does not age a person. Keeps them exactly as they were. Ease, she breathed. He looked at her with those eyes. Eyes she had missed so much the missing had become physical. A real weight she carried in her upper chest. You finally learned it, he said. I have been standing at the edge of that song for 3 years. She could not speak. She pressed her hand against the window frame so she didn't fall. I don't have long, he said. He glanced at the horizon. Not yet light, but not as dark as it had been. The door closes at sunrise. They had perhaps an hour. It was not enough. It would never have been enough. But she used every second of it. They talked in the fast, overlapping way twins talk, finishing each other's thoughts, interrupting, laughing once so suddenly that Amara clapped a hand over her mouth in shock. She had not laughed in 3 years. He told her he was not sad. He told her the guilt she'd been carrying was too heavy for what he had chosen willingly. He told her the fish she brought Nana Obi was the reason the old woman had kept the song alive long enough to find her. When the first pale thread of light appeared at the sky's edge, he began to fade. Ease. I know. He was already translucent, the compound wall visible through him. Don't bring me back again. I'm all right where I am. A pause. You were never the reason I went in, Amara. I went in because I loved you. Those are 2 entirely different things. The light came, and he was gone. She sat on the floor of her compound and cried for the first time in 3 years. Not the broken, desperate kind. The kind that means something has finally moved. But she had made one mistake. Her neighbor had been awake. Knew Zenoba did not walk. And never had. By the following morning, her neighbor's account had already mutated through 4 households, collected details it had never originally possessed, and arrived at the village square with all the confidence of established fact. Amara the weaver sang a dead man back from the other side. By afternoon, people were standing outside her gate. Not a crowd yet. Just a gathering. The kind that becomes a crowd if you leave it unattended. Amara's mother arrived first. Through the compound with the expression of a woman who had seen enough strangeness in 60 years to have stopped being surprised but had not stopped being disturbed. What happened? Nothing. I can explain quickly. Then explain it slowly. Amara explained it. The hum. Nana Obi. The song. The rules. Sunrise. Her mother sat with this for a very long time. Then, is he all right? He said he is. Another long silence. Then her mother reached across and took her hand without a word. That was all. But the village was not finished. Within 2 days, 3 families had come to her door. A grandmother. A young husband killed in a road accident. A child who had never made it to her first birthday. Amara said nothing to any of them yet. She was thinking. But something else was coming. Something that would make her think harder and faster than she ever had in her life. Chief Dyke had been the most powerful man in Oba for 40 years. His death 6 months ago had left a will nobody could agree on. His eldest son, Obinna, believed the compound, the land, and the trade routes were rightfully his. His younger brother believed otherwise. The matter was still in court. Obinna arrived at Amara's gate on a Thursday morning in a pressed agbada that cost more than her loom. 2 men stood behind him like furniture. He looked at her the way wealthy men look at things they have already decided to purchase. "You can call the dead back," he said. "No greeting. Who told you that? Does it matter?" Amara looked at him steadily. "Good morning to you too." Obinna had the grace to almost look uncomfortable. "I need you to call my father. In front of witnesses. So he can confirm what is in that will." She offered him water. He didn't want water. "My father's word in front of 10 witnesses settles this before the courts get further involved. Name your price." Amara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "There is no version of this I am willing to do." His expression changed. Something cold moved behind his eyes. "You should think carefully about that." "I have," she said. "Goodbye, Obinna." He left. But he looked back at the gate as he went. That look said, "This conversation is not finished." She knew he would return. She knew he would bring pressure. In Oba, money had friends in most of the places that mattered. But something had shifted in her chest during that conversation. A decision forming that had nothing to do with Obinna at all. It had to do with the man at the river. His name was Emeka. And for 6 months, every night without exception, he walked to the bank of the Omiri River and sat there until dawn drove him inside. His daughter Chisholm had been 4 years old when she drowned. She had been chasing a bird. Something in Amara went very still when she heard that. She had seen Emeka at the market, moving through it like a man still in shock, buying what his body needed, paying without looking at prices, carrying everything home in silence. He had not spoken more than 12 words to anyone since the funeral. His mother had moved in. Neighbors brought food. Nobody knew what to do with grief that absolute. Amara watched him one evening at the river. He didn't know she was there. He sat with his knees drawn up and his hands open in his lap. Open, she thought, as though still waiting to catch something. She went home and thought about it for 3 days. The song, Nana Obi had explained, was not infinite. Like all things with real power, it had a limit. A number that could not be known in advance, only felt approaching. Amara had used it twice, once for ease accidentally, once more carefully for a neighbor's grandmother. She did not know how many times remained. She did not know if this would be the last. But she knew, with the quiet certainty of a woman who has carried loss long enough to recognize its shape in other people, what Emeka needed. Not closure. Not an explanation. Not even forgiveness. He needed to hear his daughter say goodbye. On the 4th day, she went to Emeka's house and knocked. He opened the door. He looked at her with the flat eyes of a man who had run out of the energy to be surprised. "I need you to meet me at the river," she said. "At midnight. Just you." He stared at her. "Your daughter," she said gently, "has been trying to find you. She began at midnight exactly." The river was black and wide and perfectly still. Emeka sat 3 feet away from her, hands open again in his lap, face turned toward the water. He hadn't asked questions. He had simply come. The way a man comes when he has nothing left to protect. Amara breathed in. She breathed out. She opened her mouth. The song came out differently this time. Fuller. Older. Like something that knew it was being spent. It moved across the water first. She could see it, just barely if you kept your eyes soft and your breathing slow. A shimmer. Moving outward in rings, the way a stone disturbs still water. And then, a sound from the tree line at the river's edge. Small feet on dry leaves. Emeka heard it before he saw anything. His whole body went rigid. His open hands closed into fists, then opened again. She came out of the dark wearing the blue dress they had buried her in. 4 years old. Serious-faced the way small children are when they are delivering something important. "Daddy," she said. Emeka made a sound that was not a word. Not even close to a word. It was the sound of something that had been locked for 6 months suddenly releasing its bolt. She walked to him the way she used to, straight and certain and without hesitation. She climbed into his lap as though she owned it. She put her hands on both sides of his face. "I was chasing a bird," she said. Very matter of fact. "I didn't mean to scare you." Emeka was crying so completely he had stopped making any noise at all. "I'm not cold," she added. "And I'm not alone. There's a woman there who gives me mangoes." She considered this seriously. "She says she knows you." His grandmother. Dead 10 years. Amara kept singing. She could feel the horizon changing behind her. Feel the song thinning at its edges. Not failing but preparing to close. Like a door swinging slowly on its hinge toward the frame. She sang harder. She pushed more of herself into it than she'd given either time before. Chisholm looked over at her from her father's lap. And the child, 4 years old matter of fact, already half translucent in the growing grayness of pre-dawn, said, "Thank you for the song." Then she looked at her father. She put her small forehead against his. "I have to go," she said. "But I'm not lost, Daddy. I know exactly where I am." The light was coming. Amara sang the final bars with everything she had left. Her throat ached with it. Her hands were shaking. The horizon had turned from black to a deep bruised purple. She held the last note until the sun cracked the edge of the earth. Then the song went out of her. Not painfully. Just quietly. Like a door settling back into its frame. She sat in the silence and breathed. Emeka was holding the empty air where his daughter had been. But his face, the face of a man who had not spoken in 6 months, was different. Not healed. Not fixed. But open. Like a window that has finally, after a very long time, been unlocked. He turned to look at Amara. And for the first time in 6 months he spoke. "She looked well," he said. "She did," Amara agreed. They sat at the river until the full sun was up. Neither of them spoke much. Neither of them needed to. The song never came back. Amara waited for it. In the early mornings, in the quiet evenings, in the spaces between one breath and the next. She waited for the hum to return. It didn't. Whatever had been living in her chest for 3 years had finished what it came to do and moved on. She thought she would feel emptier for its absence. She didn't. Obinna came back with papers and a lawyer and 2 men from the city. She showed them out politely, and then sat in her compound and wove, and did not feel even one small piece of regret. Nana Obi, when Amara came to tell her the song was gone, simply nodded, as though she had been expecting exactly this. "The song chooses where it ends," she said. "You chose well." Emeka began speaking again. Slowly at first. Then more. By the following month he had returned to the market. By the month after, he could walk the river path without stopping. He began bringing Amara fish on Thursdays. Not because anyone asked. Just because someone had to. Amara kept weaving. Her patterns were tighter than ever. There were mornings early when she would catch herself humming something she could never quite remember. Just the shadow of a melody, there and gone. She did not chase it. She understood now that some things are given to you for a season. Not as a possession but as a passage. Something moves through you, uses what you have to offer, leaves something behind and continues on its way. What it left behind in her, and in Emeka, and in all the small, quiet ways the village of Oba felt its ripples without ever fully understanding why, was not the song. It was what the song had made possible. The conversations that should have happened. The goodbyes that got to be said. The weight that was finally set down. And Amara, the weaver, the quiet one, the girl who had carried guilt like a stone in her chest for 3 years, lived the rest of her days in a small compound that smelled of dye and rain and firewood, and was, by every quiet and unmistakable measure, free. The end. If this story moved something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. There are more where this came from. Subscribe and stay close.